Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Carla Malden, as we discuss her books, My Two and Only, Shine Until Tomorrow, and the autobiography, When Do I Start, that she published with her Academy Award-winning father, Karl Malden. So are you looking for a captivating read, or perhaps your next book club pick that would engage the author? Well, we're going to touch on that in this discussion. Raised in Los Angeles, Carla Malden began her career working in motion picture production and development before becoming a screenwriter. Along with her father, Academy Award-winning actor Karl Malden, she co-authored his critically acclaimed memoir, When Do I Start? More recently, Malden published After Image, a broken-hearted memoir of a charmed life, her own fiery personal account of battling the before and surviving the after of losing her first husband to cancer. So let's welcome to the show, Carla Malden.
Thank you so much for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here. And my goodness, you have such an amazing background. I think the best thing to do is just kind of start with your life in general and your personal experiences. So why don't you share with us what was like kind of growing up in Hollywood?
It's always an interesting question for me because I guess, yes, of course, technically I grew up in Hollywood, but I had in many ways an extremely un-Hollywood upbringing in that I always felt like my father was a working actor. That was his job. I spent virtually no time on sets. In those days, for actors, it was not particularly routine to bring your children on locations as people do now. So when my father was working out of town, he was away, like any father who had a job that took him away. And he would often be gone for long stretches, and then he would come back, particularly when I was little. All that said, I lived on a street in a canyon here in Brentwood, Los Angeles, where there just happened to be many actors and movie people who lived up and down the street who were our closest family friends. So really, that was just normal for me. But only as I've gotten older have I realized how really fortunate I was and how incredibly special it was to have that cluster of friends who were not only, major sort of stars, but also really wonderful, creative, funny people who were interested in us as children, as people, not just as the children of their friends. So it was a really special upbringing. I'm coming to realize more and more as I get older.
Now, you also went to school with a lot of these same people who you ended up growing up with that were kind of in the movie industry?
I did. I went to a private girls' school as a younger child up through the 9th grade. And that wasn't so much of a sort of entertainment industry oriented group of kids. But then for high school, I went to a school that just happened to be more oriented that way because it was more progressive and more focused on the arts. And yeah, there were a lot of people there who had parents in show business.
So let's talk about your dad, Karl. What an extraordinary actor he was.
He was. And an equally gifted father. I'm, again, extremely lucky to have had the two parents I had, who, by the way, happened to have been married 70 years before my father died. And he was just very much his authentic self in any given situation. The little anecdote I like to tell about that is apropos of mentioning the girls' school that I went to, which was a little sort of more conservative than my family's leanings really were. And we had a French teacher who was very prim and proper. And I think I must have been in 2nd or 3rd grade. And I came out at the end of the day to be picked up by either my mother or father. And the French teacher said to me, "Carla, your gardener is here." And I looked at my gardener. My parents never send the gardener for me. And I looked around, and it was, of course, my father in his gardening clothes. We had a hill that went behind our house, and he used to spend a lot of his free time when he wasn't working gardening on the hill. It was one of his favorite pastimes. And he was his normal, schlumpy, probably a little bit dirty from the hill self that day. So yes, he had no airs about him whatsoever. He was an extraordinary father, funny and caring and interested. And I was, as I said, extremely lucky.
Well, I'm so sorry for your loss. Losing a parent is never easy, no matter the length of time that goes by. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. I miss him every single day.
I could imagine. I could imagine. How was it growing up with a dad that was an Oscar-winning actor? I mean, did you even realize that? And how was that in your family dynamics?
Well, we had an Oscar in the house, so yes, I knew that, though it was not prominently displayed. He had a little office, quote unquote, above the garage, tiny little cubicle, sort of, and it was up there with, I might add, as the years went by, more and more and more awards and plaques, but it was not prominently displayed in the main part of the house at all. And I knew that he loved what he did and was passionate about his work and always gave 1,000% and was a huge believer in preparation. I guess that was one of the special things about being the child of an actor, was that as a kid, he used to ask me periodically to come upstairs to his little office and cue him for a part when he was learning a part. Because as I said, he was very keen on preparation. He did not like to do a cold read. He did not like to particularly improvise. He liked to really break down and learn a part. So I would often cue him on his dialogue, which was great fun. But yes, I was aware that he was in some ways had a sort of special and unique job, but it was also a passion for him. He was really a lover of his work.
So, how did your father's career impact your own creative pursuits?
Well, I think that he imbued in me the idea that it's important and wonderful, if you can, to find work that you love and to be passionate about it and to absolutely always do your best. And I like to think that I bring that to my work. I worked for many years as a screenwriter. And now, as I think you know, I've switched to prose and writing books. I've done both fiction and nonfiction. And oddly enough, I really find, even though I toiled in the fields of screenwriting for so many years, that I far prefer writing prose. I love the fact that the words that I'm putting down are the words that people are going to actually read, that it's not just a blueprint for something else, which it would be the movie. He instilled in me the importance of taking your work seriously and at the same time enjoying it. I would say that that's how he most affected me.
What great lessons to learn at such a younger age and to take that with you through life.
I agree. Absolutely. Again, very fortunate. And I have to say, I'm very aware of how fortunate I was.
So, how have you integrated your Hollywood upbringing into your storytelling with your writing?
I don't know that I really have focused on that particularly, though I'd say in a more obtuse way, movie references tend to creep into my work because that's my frame of reference in life. Just also because I studied film in college, as well as, having a show business sort of background. In one of my books, Search Heartache, I did make a prominent character an agent. I actually worked at the William Morris Agency when I was in college. So I did have that background, and that kind of crept in as a secondary character. But I don't know that I really have focused on Hollywood, except for, of course, I had the great joy and privilege of writing my father's autobiography with him, which was obviously his life story that focused mainly on both his background in the theater and in movies.
I'm so impressed how you have these themes within your books about how women overcome pain and loss. Why are these themes so important?
I think because I've grappled with that myself. I lost my first husband at a relatively young age after he had cancer for less than 1 year. And that's really what brought me to writing prose, the sort of switch of course from screenplays to prose. He and I were screenwriting partners. And then when he died, I just really didn't have the impetus to go back to screenwriting. And I had been keeping a journal the year he was sick. Mostly, it started out mostly, I should say, just to kind of keep track of all the medical minutia that I felt I really needed to know as we were making this horrible journey. And then when he died, I started just writing up the story of that year. And then I kept going and I wrote about my first year without him. So it was a book really about 2 years, the last year of his life and my first year without him and the transition between the two. And that became my memoir entitled After Image. And so that just sort of was a really organic transition into writing books from screenplays. And I had so enjoyed the experience of writing my father's book with him. I actually did the writing, even though it was in his voice. I would go up to his office and interview him maybe 3 or 4 days a week. And then I'd come home and write it up and go back and ask him, sort of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, interviewing him, asking him questions deeper, more deeply probing into the same material and then moving forward. Anyway, I had so enjoyed that process that kind of spurred me on to turn my journaly words into a book. And then I so enjoyed that process, even though it was incredibly painful. I enjoyed the writing of it, that I just stuck with books and have been since.
Well, we're so glad that you've written these books. They are such captivating reads. And what a profound journey that must have been, spending that time with your father for the autobiography. You must have learned so much about his life than most children ever learn about their parents.
Absolutely. I say again, it was really one of the great joys of my life. It took us about 2.5 years from start to finish. And it was just an extraordinary experience. And you're right. I know how unique it is. And I can't recommend it highly enough to other people, regardless of what their parents' occupation is, or if they had no occupation. Stay-at-home moms, equally interesting. Everybody has a life story to tell. And in fact, my father's been gone now 15 years, but almost every day something happens, or I see a movie that I would love to discuss with him, where I think, oh, I should have asked him about that. And we spent 2.5 years going in great depth, and that still happens to me. So I really recommend that people do that with their parents. And that they don't have to be writers. They can just video them.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Carla Malden in regards to her books, My Two and Only, Shine Into Tomorrow, and the book she co-authored with her Academy Award-winning father, Karl Malden, When Do I Start? You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed, and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Carla Malden, who's here sharing with us her books, My Two and Only, Shine Until Tomorrow, and the book co-authored with her Academy Award-winning father, Karl Malden, When Do I Start? What a gift to co-author an autobiography with your father. I can only imagine the stories that came up that maybe you've never heard before.
Well, I certainly did. I was surprised during the process of how many stories he told me that I had never heard before, and things about his relationship with his own father that were very motivating for him that I had never really realized.
Wow. No wonder so many people are resonating with that book. So why the title, When Do I Start?
That came from him. It refers to the fact that he just loved to work. And that when most of the time, when he was offered a part in a movie, or in his earlier days in the theater in New York, his first question was, when do I start? Because he just loved to work. So that the title came from him.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And I mean, even your book, After Image, I mean, goodness, what a page turner that is. And it is so authentic and raw, but you go through these different layers of grief and gratitude. Do you think that's why so many people are resonating with that book too?
I do. It has been a surprise to me, obviously a delightful surprise, how many people have resonated with it and the various letters I've gotten, including, I might add, just to briefly digress, I've received a letter from a very prominent physician at the City of Hope who talked about it from having read it from a doctor's perspective, which I found fascinating. And he alluded to a passage in which I talked about how I kept replaying in my brain the various things the doctors had said to us and parsing them for meaning. I remember early on, the oncologist said, this is not incurable, and going home and rolling it over in my mind. Why did he say that? Why did he not say this is curable? That kind of thing. And that really struck a chord with this City of Hope physician. And he said he was going to rethink how he expressed himself, which was just amazing to me. But yes, in terms of it resonating with people who have gone through similar experiences or even not so similar, I can only guess. I really don't have, obviously, the exact answer, but I can only guess that it's because I was very honest about everything I was going through, including the things I was not particularly proud of, the things I didn't handle well, the times I took it out on my husband because I was so scared and desperate, about which I will always feel guilty, that kind of thing. Because I sort of put it all in there, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think people come away from reading it with a sense that it's truthful and that any kind of human truth, one hopes, resonates with a reader.
I would say that it does because people can see their own story, their own pain, their own grief, their own life upset within that. And it's something to really emotionally connect with. And I really felt the same way when I was reading that book.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think also it was interesting for me to get that feedback in that what I had thought was a really unique and solitary experience turned out not to be. So that was fascinating for me too.
You have so many great books to talk about, and I've got a couple more here I'd love to just dive into with you. And Shine Until Tomorrow. Can you share what that book's about?
Absolutely. It is, well, first of all, let me say I originally wrote it as a YA book, a young adult book for tweens and teens. And I've been thrilled to discover how much it's crossed over into an adult audience. So I'll say that. But it is about a young girl from 2007, 17 years old, who either through a sort of Wizard of Oz bump on the head or really in truth time travels. That is left ambiguous how she gets there. And she returns to 1967, San Francisco, the summer of love. And it's very much about a girl who is obsessed with her future. She wants to get to Yale. She wants to get on with being an adult. She hates being a teenager. She's condescending towards her peers. It's about this girl who has that kind of personality and drive, who goes back to the 60s to learn to live in the present. It's her weekend there and what it teaches her.
No wonder people are picking that book up. That sounds so exciting.
It is. It was really fun to write. The 60s kind of an interesting and fascinating time to me, and I love the music, and it was really fun to explore. And I got to do it through the eyes of a young girl who would really normally think of the 60s as anathema to her. So it was great fun.
What a creative mind you have to be able to pull all of that together in such a compelling read. And it brings me to my next book of yours, My Two and Only. I'd love for you to share about that book with us.
Yes. It's very, very, very loosely based on the sort of data points of my life, though everything about it is fiction. By that, I mean, it's about a widow who loses her husband in a tragic and bizarre accident, unlike my husband. And she is stuck in widowhood. She can't shift gears into really moving on with her life. She has a successful career. She's raised her children. Everything looks like it's moved ahead, but in her heart, she's very much stuck in her widowhood. In fact, she has really used her widowhood as a way of defining herself. And she meets someone, and despite everything she thinks she's capable of, she actually falls in love. And the inciting incident at the very beginning of the book is his proposing to her. And the book is basically the arc of her grappling with whether or not to accept the proposal and what that will do to her identity.
We so get caught up in our identities, and people wouldn't even think about if we are, in the position of being a widow, what kind of identity that is as well. But that's there too.
Absolutely. And it's for this character, and I think for a lot of people, it becomes a kind of force field around them. That's a good excuse for not engaging with life. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. If it's, you can also have an absolutely fine life like that. But this is the story of a woman who can't decide what to do with herself, basically, and how to define herself. It's also very much about the stories we tell ourselves, because dropped into the story are various versions of her memory of the day her first husband died. And they evolve and they change, and you realize how her guilt about that day has infused the memory. And so the memory, as I said, is a little different each time. And I really wanted for the reader to not be 100% sure which memory is the factual one, because memory doesn't operate that way, in my opinion. We never really know which memory was the truth. Are we remembering something because we've heard the story so many times, or do we actually remember the incident? So I wanted to explore that theme as well.
Well, it takes someone with a very brilliant mind to be able to write that way. No wonder with the background that you have and the creativity that you have, that you're able to do that, because my goodness, most people, it's a book when you pick up, you do not want to put down. I mean, most people are kind of going, okay, which direction is this going?
Well, thank you so much. I'm very thrilled to hear that. I have to say, I think I work hard and really give my all on every book I've written. I worked the hardest on that one because there were a lot of moving parts and the chronology was tricky. And I worked really hard on it. I'm very proud of it.
Well, I can tell you bring in your work as screenwriter to be able to accomplish this, because for most people, that is not something that they can do and still keep the audience informed and involved in the story like you do.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, I think I'm grateful for my background as a screenwriter, in that I do approach a lot of working on my books in terms of scenes. And I try to bring a visual sense to it, as well as really enjoying the words, which is where my heart really lies. But yeah, it's helpful to have that screenwriting background and think about, can I describe this in a visual way instead of having, for example, to put it in dialogue, which actually you asked earlier about things I learned from my father. And I mentioned cueing him for parts in movies. And that was something that he taught me. He often would say, like I'd say, oh, your line is such and such. And he would say, scratch that line. I can act that. In other words, it's the dialogue is redundant to what I can show as an actor. And I think that's part of what made him so great as an actor. And I try to bring that to my writing. I don't have to repeat it in both dialogue and description. Hone it down, say it once as well as you can. So that is something I learned from him that's quite specific.
Wow, that is a special gift that is only honed by working with somebody as talented as your father and having that interaction. What are some of the common threads within your books that readers will pick up?
There are some common threads and themes, one of which is all we really have is this moment in time. The way to honor the past is to fold that into the present as elegantly as possible. And I believe that. I think that another theme just has to do with allowing yourself to overcome the fear of vulnerability and of opening up your heart. That's certainly true in the book we were just talking about, My Two and Only. That's a major theme. A beautiful way for her to honor the marriage that she lost when her husband died is to continue to love. So I think that's a theme that I like to explore. I guess the bottom line is all my lead characters in my books have to learn to get out of their own way, which is something I grapple with every single day. And I think most people do, actually, that just, get out of your own head, get out of your own way, and, open your heart.
I love how your books really help people with these lessons, these life lessons, as they're reading it. It gives such a great example of how we can do things differently.
I hope so, or at least something to think about, or examine how they would approach that. I like to think that my books, particularly Search Heartache and My Two and Only, are really good book club books, and I have gotten that feedback that book clubs enjoy discussing them. In fact, I was a guest at a book club where it was great fun, because there are a lot of situations, like I was talking about My Two and Only, the precipitating incident being this proposal of marriage, that are great fodder for discussion. Well, I think she's reacting to that in an absolutely crazy, neurotic way. Or someone else would say, That's exactly how I would react. And this is what I would do. And this is what I would do. So I think they do well with book clubs because, as you say, there's a lot of food for thought there, and people can compare their reactions to different incidents.
What a gift that is to be available for book clubs to join in the book club discussion. I think that's just fabulous.
I love to do that. In fact, let me say here and now, I'm always happy to do it virtually even. So I'm available for that. It's great fun.
Oh my goodness. Well, Carla, where can people connect with you and learn about your books and the events you have and be part of your community?
Well, I'm carlamalden.com, Carla with a C, unlike my father, who is with Karl with a K. So carlamalden.com. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. And as I said, I'm always available for virtual book clubs or anything else. Anybody wants to talk to me, I'm around.
Well, Carla, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Carla. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your books and your life in Hollywood. Make sure to visit Carla's website at carlamalden.com for more information on all the books she offers and, of course, the book she wrote with her Academy Award-winning father, Karl Malden. And she's looking forward to those book club requests. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.